Imagine if we could massively reduce global warming with simple solutions, such as better planning of shipping schedules. Kinda sounds too good to be true, right? Most people believe that complex problems like climate change require equally complex solutions, but sometimes the really genius ideas turn out to be the simple ones. Today, we take a look at both sides of the spectrum, from a group of nature lovers banding together to preserve one of the most important natural habitats in South America, to scientists using satellites to understand how clouds can help us reduce global warming. If you ever feel like you need a break from the seemingly endless barrage of negativity coming from the mainstream media, you are in the right place. My name is Regis, and I bring you some of the best news to come up recently. Get ready for your weekly dose of good news. We start off with arguably the most important topic, health. It may come as a surprise to you that the leading cause of disability worldwide and the second leading cause of death are one and the same: strokes. The key to treating a stroke is speed. If proper treatment is applied in time, people who otherwise would have died or become severely disabled could be completely healed. But there are several issues with this. Other conditions such as brain bleeds have similar symptoms, so in the past, experts had to rely on expensive advanced imaging to know what they're actually dealing with. Luckily, thanks to a group of researchers from Harvard Medical School, that is about to change. They developed a new test that combines a standard clinical evaluation with special biomarkers found in the blood to identify patients experiencing large vessel occlusion stroke, or LVO. It sounds pretty complicated, but actually it's really simple. Let me explain. You see, the most common type of stroke is caused when a blood clot restricts blood flow to the brain. When that happens in a major artery in the brain, it becomes even more dangerous. We call that an LVO stroke, and the most common way of treating it is to surgically remove the blockage. And that's where this new test comes in handy. It was designed to measure the levels of two important proteins in the blood. One of them is called GFAP, and it helps doctors exclude brain bleeds as the root cause. The second one is called D-dimer, which shows the presence of blood clots. Combining these results with the recognition of stroke symptoms early on proved to be extremely accurate. So instead of relying on complex and usually very expensive advanced imaging, it can now be done with a simple and inexpensive blood test. This is especially promising for patients in low or middle-income countries where advanced imaging just isn't readily available. How cool is that? Now, if you're personally worried about having a stroke, the best thing would be to try and manage your stress. When was the last time you laid down in the grass and just watched the fluffy white clouds roll lazily across the sky? There's just something magical and childlike about it, and you'll get to appreciate these clouds even more when you hear that they might help us save our planet. As it turns out, clouds aren't just amazing to look at. They play a key role in regulating our planet's temperature. The thin clouds higher in the atmosphere allow sunlight to pass through them, and they also trap the heat radiated from the Earth's surface. That way, they actually heat our planet. In contrast, lower, thicker clouds have a cooling effect, as they reflect a high proportion of sunlight back into space. One of the key components of clouds is aerosols, tiny atmospheric particles that float around in the air. These particles can be natural, such as dust from the Sahara Desert or vaporized salt from the oceans, but they can also be man-made, such as pollution from power plants or CO2 from vehicles. Scientists have found that some of them absorb incoming solar radiation and others reflect it, but there's still so much we don't know about the intricate mechanics of how it all works. In fact, clouds are said to be the least understood aspect of our climate. The good news is that soon might change. In fact, they might even become our allies in the fight against climate change. The European Space Agency and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency recently joined forces in a new venture called EarthCare. They're planning on using a special satellite named White Dragon to provide extremely accurate data concerning clouds and their role in climate change. Now, scientists hope that unlocking the mysteries of the clouds will help us create more accurate atmospheric models and climate forecasts, and might even aid our efforts to protect and preserve our planet for future generations. Our next story takes us to Paris and a completely different topic: the demolition of buildings. On average, 2/3 of the waste caused by a demolished building is taken to the landfill, where it will spend the rest of its days. If there was only a way to recycle more of it. People at the Swiss building material company Holcim probably thought the same thing. So they developed a new process called EcoCycle, which allows them to recycle old material and produce 100% recycled cement from elements like recycled sand, paper byproducts, and steel slag. And they decided to put this process to the test just outside of Paris. There, a group of rundown buildings from the 1960s was recently torn down to make place for a 220-unit housing complex divided into 7 new buildings. Now, 2 of these were built using recycled concrete from the original site, mixed with recycled water and 100% recycled cement. The project is called Recigénie, and if successful, it'll most likely change the way buildings around the world are made. Just for this one project, Holcim managed to save 6,000 tons of materials. Imagine the impact that this could have worldwide. But okay, maybe architecture's not your cup of tea. Maybe you're more of an animal lover. Well, we have great news for you too. At the beginning of the century, the Iberian lynx was considered all but extinct, with only 100 specimens left, only in the Spanish region of Andalusia. The lynx is a tough animal to track. Researchers had to utilize a variety of tools, such as high-tech cameras, radio collars, and good old-fashioned action tracking. These efforts resulted in a much better understanding of the lynx's behavior. Equipped with this knowledge, they were able to start a captive breeding program and start releasing the animals out into the wild. But that on its own wasn't enough. They also needed to restore their wild habitat and establish an abundance of wild prey. The favorite meal of this Spanish wild cat is the rabbit. In fact, it takes up about 90% of its diet. However, the destruction of Mediterranean forests due to agricultural expansion decimated the rabbit population. Thanks to the restoration efforts, various new habitats were established, helping to protect the forests and allowing the rabbits to repopulate the region. All these efforts resulted in a remarkable resurgence of the Iberian lynx, which now numbers 2,021 individuals in the Iberian Peninsula, compared to 1,668 last year. That's honestly an astonishing feat. And you know what, since we're on the topic of wildlife, here's another truly inspiring story. Recently, a group of environmentalists managed to win a legal battle against a huge business conglomerate and preserve one of the most ecologically significant areas in the whole of South America. The problem started when a Chilean businessman by the name of Roberto Hageman bought a huge 1,300 square kilometer property known as Hacienda Pucheguin. Roughly the size of the island of Hong Kong, the property is surrounded by national parks, cut by wild rivers, and decorated with forests of ancient alerce trees. It even boasts towering granite walls, popular with rock climbers all around the world. The area was almost untouched by humanity, except for a few hundred settlers who built farms on it. Then Mr. Hageman started buying one plot of land after another, saying he wanted to develop it for tourism. Yet his first step was going to be building a hydroelectric plant. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Of course, this would have had a detrimental effect on wildlife. So a group of environmentalists led by Rodrigo Condesa started a non-profit organization called Pueblo Patagonia and challenged Hageman in court. After a decade of legal battles, the businessman decided to give up his plans and sell the land. Other organizations and individuals have since joined the cause and are slowly raising the $63 million needed for the purchase of this land. This deal now serves as a case study in modern-day conservation. It's a true story of David versus Goliath. Sure, it took a whole lot of time and effort, as well as a bit of luck, but Pueblo Patagonia proved that dreams can really come true. And by the way, if you enjoy uplifting stories like this, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because we have way more of these coming your way. Speaking of achieving the impossible, our next story certainly fits that description. A team of researchers recently made an incredible breakthrough by completely mapping a previously unmapped part of the human brain. The brain is an incredibly complex organ. It's so complicated that even in the 21st century, we still don't know most of the intricate mechanisms that make it work. That makes it even more difficult to treat medical conditions related to the brain. So experts figured that it would be easier if we had a map. A map of a brain is referred to as a connectome, and this isn't the first time that scientists have attempted to create one. The first connectome was done on a nematode brain back in 1986. Then came fruit flies, maggots, a tadpole, and even an earthworm. But until now, no one even dared to try mapping a human brain because it was incredibly difficult. To make things easier, the researchers decided to map a very tiny brain sample. It was around 1 cubic millimeter in volume, which is about 3 times smaller than a fruit fly. But regardless of the size, this speck of a human brain contained over 150 million synapses, or connecting structures between brain cells. Basically, these allow one brain cell to communicate with another. Imagine mapping 150 million of them. How on earth did they do this? Well, first they used a diamond blade to splice that minuscule brain sample into 5,019 individual slices. Then, with the help of Google and their AI-based processing, each slice was scanned with an electron microscope and put back together in a digital 3D model. Different elements were labeled with different colors, allowing easier navigation through this incredible maze. Even though creating the map was a monumental task, the best is honestly yet to come, as researchers around the world have the opportunity to use this model in their own work free of charge. This will allow us to learn so much more about how our brains work, and hopefully help us to treat medical conditions related to the brain. Alright, let's stray away from the complicated stuff now and see how a simple idea can yield great results in the fight against climate change. Even though using ships is one of the more effective ways to transport goods, statistics say the shipping industry is responsible for around 3% of global man-made carbon emissions. So experts are testing out various solutions, like using green fuel such as hydrogen, or even attaching massive kites designed to pull ships along and decrease the consumption of fuel. However, an innovative team of maritime technology experts had something completely different in mind. Their idea was as simple as it was genius. To understand it, you need to know that most shipping companies currently use the sail fast then wait approach. That means they sail to their destination as quick as possible and then wait for the time they're scheduled to unload their cargo. So not only are they consuming more fuel because they're going fast, but they use additional fuel while they're just waiting there. So the idea was to develop a platform that helps ships navigate the sea, so they sail at the most optimal speed and arrive at their destination precisely on time. And since they're moving slower, they spend much less energy. Also, they don't have to use any additional fuel just waiting to unload. The solution is so simple that it kind of makes you wonder why nobody thought of this before. The preliminary trials show that this approach allows shipping companies to save 17.3% of fuel on average. That's almost 1/5 of their overall consumption. The beauty of this solution is that the ships don't need to be modified at all, and the goods still arrived at the exact same time. It's ideas like this that show that we don't always need high-tech innovations to fight the climate crisis. Sometimes all we need is to think things through with a fresh perspective. You made it! I'm so glad you stuck with us until the end of the video. Whether you're interested in technological solutions or new medical breakthroughs, or if you just love animals and nature, tell me which of our good news stories you liked the most. Also, feel free to lightly tap that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.